instructors, and we've had this great opportunity to combine this presentation today with the iPad user group. And Dennis has very graciously brought his entire team. And Michael Rain is joining us from the College of Business Administration. And we're going to talk about iPad, and I know a lot of you are here because you own one and you have burning questions. Some of you are beginners, some of you are intermediate users, and some of you are advanced. So hopefully we'll be able to address all of that. And without further ado, I'll let Dennis introduce himself and his team, and then we'll get started.
All right, thank you. Welcome to another session of what we call the iPad Users Group Meeting Combined. What we want to address today are probably many different types of techniques and applications that you can use on the iPad. Also, you'll have many questions from us or to us that we may not be able to answer, but we find the answers. It's a learning process for all of us because the iPad technology continually grows and changes almost on a daily basis. We will have basically two Q&As during this presentation. One is about presenting, and the other one's going to be about applications towards the end. We'll have a Q&A there. We usually start our iPad users group with questions and answers. We're not going to start that today because we've got some issues we want to show you. I'm Dennis Devaney. I'm from the College of Education. I'm the director of the Catalyst, which is the Media Services Center. I would like my colleagues to introduce themselves. We'll start with Mary Hamill.
Hi, I'm Mary Hamill, and I'm also in the College of Education. I'm the Associate Director of the Catalyst Technology Center. And I do graphic design and web stuff and photography for the College of Education.
Good morning, I'm Michael Rain, and I work in the IT department in the College of Business.
I'm Matthew Heinrich. I work with Dennis and Mary at Catalyst in Blumont Hall. I'm a systems programmer. I just maintain the systems and code databases.
And he helps us keep things running. A lot of what you're going to see today is basically going to be on an AirPlay and our own private network that we've set up. Some of you will have questions on how does this work throughout the campus and the university. And all I can say is give it time. Time will dictate a lot of the changes that are going to happen in the technology here on campus. Our wireless infrastructure is being rebuilt across campus, so give those guys some slack in getting things done. I ask that, and also that they're doing their best to increase the infrastructure for all the bandwidth and technologies that we bring here on campus. First thing I'd like to show you, well, I'd like to ask you a question first. How many in here have iPads? Wow. How many are new users? Wow. We are going to have some questions. And that's great. That's great. One thing I want to show you is we're going to be switching back and forth between our iPads to show you some of the presentation technologies that you can use an iPad for. What we're using right now is we're going to be using an Apple TV, which is hooked up to that projector system there. Matt is going to explain that in more detail as we get into explaining the Apple TV. But you'll notice that we have ours set up with Apple TV, so you may see this screen pop up once in a while when somebody's switching on. And we have this selected. I've selected Apple TV, and now I am on. And basically the format that you usually see when you get your iPad brand new, these are applications you will see, and then you add on from there. I'll leave it at that right now, and I'm going to step into showing you basically Keynote and how some of the things you can do with Keynote in the iWorks application. How many of you are familiar with iWorks? Downloaded it, used it? Okay, we've got a few. We're going through and we're going to show some presentations, and then we'll talk about the iWorks and that suite. I'm going to show Keynote right now. It basically is a presentation tool so that you can either plug it in to the projection system or do something like this in the future where I can actually go in and project it. Keynote will read a PowerPoint presentation. It will also port back out to a PowerPoint. And out of just saying that, I will go to Keynote and show you. You can have all sorts of a variety of presentations that you want to give that you can go to, and it catalogs and keeps them on your iPad for you to use. Keynote is a PowerPoint presentation tool. It allows you to set up and create presentations. You can pick your backgrounds. You're limited here, and of course there's more you can add. You can go to various types of presentation formats that you want to use and putting in pictures and adding extras to it as far as even text. And present. Now I'm going to step back out of this, just show you our presentations. Now, let's say you're on your PC or your Mac, and you've got the Office Suite that's free here on campus for you to use, and you've created a PowerPoint presentation, and you want to get it to your iPad. The simplest way we do it is we send it to ourselves through the email. So I'm going to step back out of this. I'm going to go to my email, and I have a PowerPoint presentation here that was sent from me to Mary Hamill, but it's also carbon copied to me. I'll click on that. Your iPad will show it, so you can look at it. It'll show basically the basics of your slides that you have. But I want to look at that in Keynote so I can present with it. So I will open that in Keynote. It'll take just a moment for it to download into Keynote, and it puts it in that library. And I know, and these come up, so be aware of these. Many times they will not match up with a font, 3D chart, just go ahead and click done, because you can't do anything else. Select your PowerPoint and bring it up. And now I can go through the presentation of it. I can basically talk to you, walk around the room. You can be talking about certain things. We'll show you some tools later where you can actually do markups on these. But I can go through and I can change the slides. While I'm talking to you, you may even have that same PowerPoint so you can follow along. And you can go through those points on it. I just basically wanted you to see another way to present with the iPad. I'm going to step back now, and I'm going to let Michael Rain come up with Dosery and show another presentation method.
So when you load that though, all your animations and everything come with it?
Not all animations do. So you've got to test it. I ask that you test some of the animations. It depends on how they were made. Here we go. Michael's going to take the screen away from me.
So first of all, just like that, and we'll talk more about Apple TV in a minute, but just like that, now I have control of the Apple TV connected to the projector, so now I can present what I'm doing on my iPad. So far, what Dennis explained was how to do presentations with the presentation actually on the iPad. Okay, so the iPad sending the signal to the Apple TV, or if you're plugged into the projector, the Apple or the iPad is actually sending the presentation to the projector. Well, that's not always applicable, or that doesn't always work well, especially in a classroom setting. In a classroom setting, you may want to walk around. You may not have an Apple TV to do this wirelessly, and you don't want to have your iPad connected into the projector up in front where you have to stand there. So another software application is called Dosery. Dosery actually is some software that sits on the computer, and you use the iPad to control the computer. So all the work's really done on the computer itself. So in this case, we have a mini Mac, right? Mac Mini. And I'm a PC user. This is the only piece of Apple hardware I have, and so we're using Apple hardware here today. So it's a little different for me, but it's going to work well. Okay, it's going to be a good test. So on the computer itself, we install Dosery. Dosery costs about $50 a license to put on the computer. Okay, then it has a free app that you install on the iPad. So I'm going to go to my Dosery app, and it pops up, and it remembers this computer that I've already connected to in the past. Now, in our building in Calvin Hall, we have this software installed in all 9 of our classrooms. And once you connect the iPad to the computer, to each of the computers, it will remember them. So you can generally walk into the classroom, turn the computer on, have it up and going, connect, and you can see that my iPad here is actually seeing what's on the computer, which is on that screen over there. Okay, so I can control things from there. So if I want to show a PowerPoint presentation, I can click on it. At least I think I can. It's coming up. Again, remember, this screen is showing what I see on my iPad. This screen is what is showing on the computer, which would typically what you would see in the classroom. Okay? So, I'm going to open up my, and again, I've got just a little,
Michael, I'm going to
there,
close
go
this
ahead,
out for
thank you. Okay, so we started there, and then I'm going to start the presentation. And especially if you have a stylus or a pen, then you can annotate right on the presentation if you want to. And again, the instructor can walk around the room with this. Okay, I can advance the next slide. I can go to the next slide if I want. And I can talk about what's on there. The instructor can carry this around the room, look at it. If I see something that I want to pull out and annotate, I can annotate on it. I can underline things, whatever I want to do while I'm walking around the room and talking with our students. So we found it very helpful. We have a couple faculty in the College of Business that this has really revolutionized how they teach in their classroom. Okay, one of those faculty up until this time was an accounting instructor, and he used overhead slides, overhead projector, and wrote on it. Now he can use this, prepare his PowerPoint, and actually write on whatever he wants to annotate to make his equations, whatever he needs to do. So it's worked out well for him. The software also allows you to, this one doesn't because we don't have it registered, but typically the software, if it's registered, would not give you this box until at the end of your presentation. But you can save the presentation including the annotations. So that if you needed to put that on in case you didn't online or use that again, review it, whatever you needed to do, you could do that. So Doseries work pretty well for us. We think it's a good program, good application. Again, it's a $50 investment to put the software on the computer. And by no means is this the only software out there that lets you do that. It's just different than some of the other presentation applications you'll see today because, again, it rests on the computer and you're controlling the computer on your iPad. So, yes, sir.
So the iPad's basically like a remote control.
Exactly.
And like resident programs on the computer.
That's right.
Could be any program?
Yes, yeah. I mean, once you install Dosery, you can use any program to do it. You can pull up a keyboard. Let's see. Can you get me out of the presentation for just a second? I should have practiced more with Mac or the presentation for Apple.
I'm going to clear PowerPoint so you can show.
Yeah, so you can actually pull up any application on the computer and use it. So if I wanted to pull up, there's Dennis's email, so I could send email. It just works with anything on the computer at all. So just a remote control of the computer.
Can it be a PC computer or Mac?
It can be, yes, yes. And Wes, that's what we use in our building. We run it all on the PC. Uh-huh.
Is it $50 per computer or $50 for the whole building?
It's $50 per computer for the software, okay? But the app on the iPad is free. So again, you have the one investment to put the software on the computer, but then all the instructors who use the iPad, that app is free. So, okay, does that kind of make sense for everybody? Okay, great.
Thank you, Mike. Mary's going to show a program called Splashtop.
Yes, the program I'm going to show is called Splashtop Remote is actually the name of it. And it's similar to the Dosery in that I'm going to be controlling a computer remotely. But what I was going to show you is I'm not going to be controlling that computer right there. I have another app, it's a Splashtop app, on my computer and my desk at work over in Blue Hall. And I can actually connect directly to it, just so it's on and running. I can actually connect directly to it and log in here. Keyboard does. And then, let's see, it tells me the Splashtop remote connection is established and my iPad is controlling that computer. So if I'm over here and one of my coworker emails me, I need this file, can you send it to me? Well, I might not have it on my iPad, but it's on my desktop or my computer at work, so I can remotely go into my computer there and I can open up the file, and there it is. I can even tell it to print, you know, if they need a copy of it, and my printer's jumping up and down there. So it's another way that you could do it. I suppose I could also run a PowerPoint directly from there if I didn't have it on here, just so my desktop. Sorry about that. Just so my
Mary,
desktop.
here you could edit this Word document if you wanted to, you'd have the full Word
Correct.
application. Okay, great.
I can open and put Word here. Being a little touchy there. There we go. So, and it doesn't just have to be anything that's on my desktop. I can go into my hard drive and go find any file that I want. So, but it's pretty useful if you leave your computer on, of course your computer has to be on, or you're going to be remotely logging into it. But it's kind of a handy thing to have if you're going to be away and you need to access files that are on your computer, your desktop.
Is
And
that
it's
for-
Mac and PC.
Mac and PC, okay, that's what I was gonna ask.
So is that an app you bought?
Yes, and I'm not sure right offhand what it is. So you're gonna have to buy. I'm trying to remember.
I thought the Splashtop was free.
Well, let me tell you this. Sometimes these apps are free. A lot of times, like on weekends, they'll put things on either on sale for a reduced price or free. So I'm not sure what this is currently at. It might be a $10 app.
It's $3.
Is it $3? Okay.
$2.99.
$2.99. So.
Did it free for the iPad? Cost you?
No, I think it costs for the iPad, but I'm not sure if that.
Yes, it's an opposite of what Doceria's.
Okay,
Yeah.
so you have to buy it for the iPad, but I don't think you have to for your PC or your Mac. So.
It's a neat way, if you don't have a computer that's loaded into a media room with the application running that you want to run, you can just run onto your PC or Mac and run the app.
So in order to work, you have to have it on both your iPad and your Mac?
Yes, you have to have it installed on the Mac in order for you to connect to it. And I don't know if you can see up there, you see this little, yeah, you can see it.
It's this little icon
Up there,
right here.
that little icon? And I can turn it off on my computer at work if I want. Let's see if I can open it. So I can turn it totally off if I want, so. But you have to have it on both.
That's for,
See, I lost the connection because I told it to.
and that's for Keynote too, so you have to have it on both.
Correct. Yeah, well, no. If, I wouldn't have to have Keynote on here. If I was connected to that computer that had Keynote, then I wouldn't have to have it on here. Or any other app. So, because I'm going off of that computer, not off of this, I'm just controlling it.
It's just
with
a
the
mirror.
iPad.
So, and now your desktop that you're controlling, can it be either PC or Mac or just Mac?
Yes, I'm pretty sure it's PC Mac.
So could work on documents that way instead of doing Dropbox?
Yes.
Yeah, and Sally, a little bit later, we'll talk about Dropbox and how that fits into this picture, because that is a good point.
I mean, it's nice if you leave your computer on and you're away at a conference and you need a document. You can log into your computer and access it.
Yeah.
How
If
exactly
you're
is
not
that
using
connecting?
Dropbox.
How exactly is that connecting to your computer? Because I know they're changing things on campus to go through VPN, so you can't do remote access type stuff. So is that something that's going to affect that, or do you
I don't
know?
We don't know, because it's going through a different type of portal. Okay, well, we're gonna have Matt step up here, he's gonna talk about the AirPlay, or Apple TV is kind of what you're gonna be interested in, and then Matt, you can answer that portion of it.
Question.
Oh, yeah,
Do you maybe clarify, will all those apps work on all generations of iPads, or are some of them limited to certain generations?
Some are limited to certain generations. Actually, what we're doing here is limited to the iOS 5 because of what we're doing, being remotely not tethered to the computer. If I had an iPad original, I'd be plugging in to the projection system and running right off the iPad. Or I could use Dosery and work through that format.
So, did I hear that, like, I have an original, so I wouldn't be able to walk around and,
No.
With Dosery, you could,
Dosery you can,
Okay.
just Dosery, yes.
but not with using Apple TV.
But it's just a matter of upgrading to iOS 5.
Matt, Heinrich?
Well, I'll kind of try and answer or clear this up a little bit, how all this stuff works. Now, these two programs are this, they do presentation, but they do it in different ways. Kind of like Mary says, she's looking back at her computer at work. You don't need a computer in this room in order to do it. Whereas Dosery, you need a computer in the room, or you want the computer in the room, and that way you can kind of control it here. So both require applications on the computers, whether it be back in the office or right here. Both of them require an application on your iPad in order to work. But that gives you the peek hole. That way you can actually, you're just controlling the computer. That's all you're doing. But how does, well, we'll just kind of go, how does the mirroring work? Now, mirroring means that whatever I see on my iPad is what you see on the screen. This is limited to an iPad 2, 100% mirroring. Now, that doesn't mean you can't stream movies or audio, I'll get to that in a minute, but it means the mirroring is limited to an iPad 2. Same with, either way, connecting with a wire or wirelessly. So, what are the tech specs that require this? Well, to do AirPlay, you need an Apple TV 2, little black hockey puck. You need an iPad 2 or an iPhone 4S. The new iPhone will do it as well, if you wanted to mirror wirelessly. Like I said, it will work with an iPad 1 and iPhone 4, 3S, if you upgrade to iOS 5, the latest and greatest operating system for them. But you'll only be able to stream audio, and you'll only be able to stream video, like the YouTube clip. So you could use the YouTube. I could go here, and so if I go to YouTube, for students, if you're out there, you would not see this on the screen. But once I select video, what doesn't really matter, if I select any video, this would, from my iPad, it goes blank, and then it starts showing whatever is on the screen. So with an iPad 1, if you've got the older gen, you can still do things. You just can't do as much.
Yeah, so don't toss the old iPad out. It's got a lot of functionality.
So it's still viable, but it's, it won't be able to do this, what we're doing here. How this works is it uses Bonjour and multicast, meaning they're just protocols for the network engineers to actually set up. It requires a lot of bandwidth to do what we're doing right now. Obviously, we're mirroring everything I do on the iPad to a computer that, like it's bouncing off, going to a projector. That's quite a bit to do it one-to-one. So we are upgrading our wireless infrastructure to compensate for that. This whole, minus the Apple TV, it does allow you to do printing. If you've ever heard of AirPrint, it uses Bonjour and multicast as well. That's very limited at the moment. It's only supported on maybe a handful of printers. So if you really want it, you got to get deep into it to make sure you got the right printer, you got the right iOS. It's not very pleasant at the moment. But the whole idea of an iPad is to eliminate paper. So we're not using that. So.
All right, thank you, Matt. Well, now we're going to open just briefly for what we've done, Q&A for you to ask questions about what we've just done. We'll step on from this to talking about various applications for beginners and advanced beginners, what you can use. So all of us are open for questions. Yes?
I want to connect somehow my iPad to a MacBook Pro in the classroom and screen flow everything that I'm doing. I've been filming, I have a camera in the back that's connected to my MacBook Pro, but I want to use some features of the iPad in order to screen flow it. What I do on the iPad has to go through the MacBook Pro. How can I do that?
Dosery would work well, and in fact, we have a faculty member who actually is using Dosery and his iPad to create online content using a software called Camtasia.
Yes, so ScreenFlow is the Mac version.
Right. So in other words, the instructor is sitting in his office using his video or webcam, okay, and the iPad to make annotations, to make changes, to control his presentation. And that's all being captured on the computer with Camtasia and then saved and then work it out. So
Okay,
that
so
would be one way
Dosery
to
will
do
put
that.
all of that together.
Right.
Yes?
Security issues, you know, Mary was typing in her password, and even if it was going really fast, I know you've already been telling us in iPad meetings to disconnect that where you're doing password things and stuff, and we couldn't see it, but it was really fast, but still she would have to be concerned that we're being videotaped.
You do have to be
Those
concerned
issues.
about that. We're getting ahead of us, but it's something we need to approach now because that is a good question. You'll notice when Mary was typing in, or I think even Matt was typing in a password, you can see the keys are being selected. You have to keep that in mind. We have not found an app that would hide that entry. So you have to be aware of that when you're logging in, that you're projecting and showing the sequence of your passcode.
Guess my password.
See? Now you know the passcode.
So you have to be mindful of that when you're doing presentations.
Very much so. One of the things that we do here is we've changed our passwords so when we present, we use just any old code. And then when we leave here, we change it back to the one we've been using.
But for like EIDs, when we're logging into an EID,
Yes.
I think you need to be mindful, maybe have that stuff ready before your presentation. And or, it's really simple, you can turn this off, click iPad, and type your password, then go back to mirroring. So,
And then another thing you can do is just unplug it for a split second from the
Exactly.
iPad and then do the password and then plug it.
if you're wired, you can just.
Or you can step up in front of the projector. Any other questions? Yes, Chris?
I have a question for Michael and Dosery. Are you using, when the professor's using Dosery in the classroom, is he using the Apple TV too, or is he just controlling the laptop on the projector?
We're not using Apple TV, so we have our computers that are wired into our projectors. And then the iPad uses the university's wireless system to connect to the network, which then connects to the printer, or excuse me, the computer, okay? And that's how that's working, okay? But one of the things, and you know, you've heard that now several times as we talk about working with our wireless networks. And I just want to emphasize that again, that when you're working with networks and doing remote control devices, there's always some element of unknown there, that things can maybe not work. And this has happened to our instructors, okay? They're prepared. They're walking in the classroom, they've got their iPad ready, they've got their presentation ready, and what happens? The wireless isn't working for some reason. Now, we can't control that, so, you know, as you are educators, you know you always have a backup ready, and so there's always the chalkboard or the whiteboard gets used until we get it going. So anyhow, the point is that it's not always 100%. Just like we're working with any technology, there's always that opportunity that something's not going to work. And of course, when it's not going to work is when you're standing in front of your students or standing in front of the presentation. So,
Or like the times you want to get your email in the last 4 or 5 days or week and you just can't get it. That happens. Yes? Question? Yes?
Yeah, so is there no app or anything? Because that's what we were just talking about, that dosery. We give a lot of extension presentations across the state where there's, no internet access. There's no app that would like link, your iPad to maybe a laptop via Bluetooth or something like that.
One of the things that we're finding is people are starting to use little data access points, like a Sprint or a Verizon access point.
Like a MiFi?
Yeah,
Yes.
like Wi-Fi, yeah, or something like that, so that then gives you your internet access, then allows you to connect different types of devices into it. So something like that would work well. There's a technical learning curve to be able to make all those connections together, but I would assume that you could do that, most of that ahead of time. So when you get to your presentation, most of that connections are done, you can kind of just start that way.